Sometimes history doesn't shout, it whispers in silk across parquet, and that's enough to drown out any California scream. This week will be exactly that. While one house in Montecito preps content, another house, Windsor, preps ceremony. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Catherine steps out not as a social feed image, but as a pillar of tradition. The calmer her step, the louder the nerves crack for those who live off spikes of attention. Stay to the end, one tiny detail in her tiara choice explains why this week will redraw the map. Windsor plays the long game. It doesn't make a moment, it restores a long memory. Order, predictability, adult responsibility. Palace music, the guard, unhurried greetings, this is the language the monarchy uses to speak to the nation without interviews or press releases. In that sentence, Catherine is the punctuation mark, a quiet full stop at the end of a significant thought. No fuss, no flutter, just a mechanism refined by decades. Try arguing with that when you're used to proving authenticity with stories and captions. You can't argue with a period. It's simply placed, and the conversation ends. To be fair, Windsor isn't trying to spike headlines. It's like the tide, it doesn't chase anyone. It comes in and leaves things where they belong. This time the tide will set one simple truth ashore: when you do your job quietly and consistently, you don't need to explain who you are. Catherine isn't turn it up, she's do it properly. That's why the 50-plus audience watches weeks like this not with fashion eyes but with the eyes of people who know how vital it is for big things to stay in their places. Their instinct is different. They read training, not address, habit of bearing, not a camera-ready smile when pressure is high and time is short. Meanwhile on the other coast, the counter-program will inevitably roll. We've seen it a dozen times and can hear it by sound: quick cuts, soft filters, words about joy, adding light, being yourself, children's hands in frame and emptiness between the lines. That answer works only as long as the camera is on. Windsor holds the pause. It speaks in silence, and that silence is louder than any reel's soundtrack. That's what stings most. You can outshout a rival, but you can't outshout meaning. You wanted retention, watch the hands. Not the gown, the hands. The core secret of royal service lives in a palm on a balustrade, in fingers meeting a guest's hand, in a gesture that doesn't fluster even when wind lifts a hem and pulls a strand across the face. They're details only to people who've never stood under 100 lenses representing a country rather than themselves. For older viewers, these details are reliability markers. We don't believe words, we believe motor skills. Catherine's are steady, no frost on the smile, no anxious flicker of the eyelid. Not a pose, a skill. The skill of serving, not performing. Now, tiaras, not for sparkle, but for message. Any jewel chosen for the banquet is not just stones, it's a citation. Sapphires speak of steadiness and the cool light of duty worn when the signal was we continue, whatever comes. Emeralds signal the strength of the line, deep green hinting at roots that endure. There are transformable pieces that swap drops, pearls or emeralds, quietly reminding us, flexibility isn't betrayal, it's a survival tool. However the pendulum swings, the message is one. This isn't a woman's ornament, it's the institution's cipher. Which is why competing by picture looks silly. A tiara doesn't beat someone. A tiara confirms something. Now you see why Montecito needs reconciliation stories, surprise outings, and warm family photos. Not because they're true, but because it's the only language available. The language England reads best, though, is discipline. No matter how often the word toxic press is repeated across the ocean, British audiences remember, hard years were endured not by PR but by the habit of working in the rain. And when someone steps out into rain this week, literally or symbolically, that will be enough to make every other feed feel spare. One more hook, and an important one. This isn't a question of who's prettier, but who's more dependable. Beauty is quick fuel. Dependability is diesel up a hill. Older viewers know this by experience. You don't choose the loud, you choose what doesn't let you down. That's how Catherine works with her audience. She doesn't promise, she delivers. She doesn't invent symbols, she wears them and carries them as if they were not precious metal but the invisible, real weight of expectation. That's where the most painful comparison lands. If you've spent years explaining why it's hard while the person beside you spent years not explaining but doing, the public draws its own conclusions. Don't expect any comment from Catherine in response to parallel noise. Her answer is the schedule, her reply is the protocol. She isn't competing, she's formalizing. That is the Crown's signature move: win the game without playing on someone else's board. It's a pleasure to watch for those who've seen a lot. Younger eyes hunt drama, mature eyes see order, and it's easier to breathe in order. Retention isn't built on scandal but on calm. We stay because our time is treated with respect by people who know what they're doing. Picture the night's final frame. Windsor slows, warm window light, the orchestra softens its last note, guests step into the cool air, and everything hushes. On the other side of the world, the dominoes start, a chance papwalk, a stream of inspiration in stories, a long inner voice post. But audience fatigue is real. Those over 50 recognize repetition fastest: same shots, same phrases, same little jabs while the big house is busy doing the work. At some point, viewers start budgeting their attention. They stay where their time is honored. The symbolic apotheosis, a jewel brought out after decades in the vault. Not a comeback, a handover. The cupboard opens, and out comes not glitter but obligation. To where it is to say, I know this isn't for me, but through me. That's where any debate about charisma and modernity snaps. Charisma is useful, but for sprints. Modernity is useful until it tries to rewrite foundations. This is foundation. Which is why any flash from the opposite shore will remain just that, a flash. You asked for a moral punch, here it is, without shouting. This week shows you can stun with calm. Catherine may speak more than usual, banquets do that, but her main text will be how she carries it. Quietly. Surely. Without proving she's still trending. It's not trend. It's duty. Dust, as we know, settles on the surface, not the structure. And yes, for the retention kicker you waited for, even if the tiara isn't the rarest, even if the dress is a repeat, that's the power. Repetition is a luxury for those who don't need to surprise. It's the privilege to say, we won't change the essence for noise. And noise tires faster than meaning. Especially for those who've heard almost everything. So write it down. The weak Windsor set a full stop in a whisper, and Montecito once again tried to outshout silence. If I sound too calm for a scandalous topic, that's deliberate. Sometimes the best cliffhanger is confidence that the story will continue. Where things run by schedule, the next chapter always arrives on time.